There are two items on the agenda today. We have a hearing on HB 2346 and Commerce Conversations with Midwest Transformers. We are going to start with the hearing, HB 2346. In committee, as you know, we have heard and worked this bill last year. And then over the interim, we had some more discussion about it. We actually passed it out of committee, and it was below the line. We had some lots of discussions on this bill. It's an important bill. We had a lot of discussions on it through the interim, and figured we would make a couple of changes to it. If you recall, this bill was originally created for sports tourism around youth sports to bring in tremendous amount of economic development by an activity by bringing in mini sports teams for large-scale tournaments. And so with that in mind, we're gonna go ahead and get a briefing on what the bill currently does. Reviser Reimer.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I have a bill brief prepared. It's on the drive. Unfortunately, it's not in your packet. 2025 HB 2346. As the chairman explained, this is a bill that's held over from last year. It establishes the Kansas Sports Tourism Grant Program that's administered by the Secretary of Commerce. The purpose of the bill is to provide matching grants to tourism and sports-related organizations to support and enhance sports tourism events in Kansas that generate significant economic impact from out-of-state spending. And as you'll see, that's one of the interesting aspects of this bill, is that there are specific provisions that guarantee that there are significant economic impacts that would be generated from the grant funding. Grants are awarded as a pledge, conditioned on post-event data. That's kind of unusual in an economic development program. They're matched on a one-to-one basis by sponsor funds. And the intent with this bill is to ease the financial burdens of bidding and hosting on these types of sports events, and also to incentivize beneficial events in the state. Applications are submitted to the Secretary. Secretary can charge a fee. The applications must include an estimated economic impact and also hotel beds consumed using a specific calculation tool. It's called the Destinations International Event Impact Calculator, and the Secretary can assist with that. There needs to be a written explanation of purpose, how funding would grow sports tourism locally, regionally, statewide, and an important requirement is that applicants who are event owners must obtain grant sponsorship. So there are specified local entities that may be required to serve as sponsors. Events must be held in Kansas, of course, and they may be existing or new events. The grant is awarded by the Secretary. There's a provision that at least $250,000 of available grant funds are to be reserved for events in rural counties, counties other than Sedgwick, Wyandotte, and Johnson. The final grant amount is determined under Section 3. There is a maximum grant limit, not more than 12.5% of state sales tax generated from the local jurisdiction during the event period. And as I mentioned, this grant is figured after the fact based on a report that is provided. And so that 12.5% limit is determined at that time based on data provided by the Secretary of Revenue. There are certain exclusions for expenses, no grants for events directly involving the NBA, the NFL, the Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, Major League Soccer, professional women's soccer, and important note, international events, including men's professional soccer. Established resident Kansas professional sports entities are also excluded. The Kansas State High School Activities Association events are excluded. Private or public secondary school events are excluded, and private or public post-secondary colleges or university events. There are no grant funds for goods or services that are not competitively bid. So as I mentioned, the final grant amount is determined after the event. It's based on a post-event report, based on actual expenses, the verified economic impact, hotel night bookings, application of the allocation table, which you can see on page 3, and then subject to that maximum that I mentioned, the 12.5% of the sales tax revenues. So I think I'll move on here a little bit here. Just mention a little bit about allowable expenses. So those can include officials' travel and housing, promotions and marketing, site rights and sanctions and fees, rental of required equipment and flooring, and bid support if the applicant wins the bid. Now, all those expenses must be identified in the application and approved by the Secretary. There are certain expenses that are not allowed. That includes facility construction, renovation, remodeling, or permanent equipment, pre-pledged debts, printer programs that solicit advertising, hospitality, or social functions outside the venue. That includes alcohol, and travel outside the host country. There are some post-event reporting requirements. As I mentioned, that's on Section 4. The applicant has to provide that report after the event. That includes an economic impact report, as specified in the bill, and also an expense report that has to include proof of payment. Funding of this program. So the funding is set out in Section 5. So first of all, there's a $1.5 million transfer from the State Economic Development Initiatives Fund to the Program Grant Fund, which is established by the bill. The bill creates the Kansas Sports Tourism Program Grant Fund. And if there isn't sufficient monies in the State Economic Development Initiatives Fund, then the shortfall is transferred from the State General Fund. The ongoing fund provisions involve a transfer from the State Economic Development Initiatives Fund each year to bring the fund amount, the grant fund amount, up to $1.5 million. And again, if there isn't enough money, then that money comes from the State General Fund, according to the bill. Subject to appropriations, the aggregate total grants awarded each fiscal year limited to $1.5 million. There's a requirement for legislative reporting. Section 6, the Secretary has to submit annual reports to House Commerce, Senate Commerce, and the LCC. The reports are to include a number of items that are specified in the bill. This bill has a sunset. The program would expire June 30th of 2030. And if enacted, this program would take effect on July 1, 2026. I'd note that there are a number of dates throughout the bill that would need to be changed since this is a holdover from last year. And that is what the bill does, Chairman.
Okay, committee, any questions for the reviser? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I have just a couple. The $1.5 million transfer, is that subject to appropriation, or is that automatic? Like, so it could Appropriations Committee adjust that either up or down?
That is subject to appropriations, Chairman. You can see that on page 4 of the bill, line 40.
Okay, thank you. And is this bill specifically structured to retain tournaments, or can we use it to attract new tournaments?
So I believe you can use it to attract new tournaments, but again, is subject to that sort of after-the-fact review.
Okay, any other questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much, sir. We're going to go ahead and open the proponent section of the bill. And first up, we have Warren Wilkerson from Visit Overland Park. Welcome back to Commerce Committee, sir. Great to see you. Sorry I wasn't able to talk to you beforehand.
Thank you, Chairman.
Schedule's a little tight these days.
Commerce Committee members. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today about House Bill 2346. My name is Warren Wilkinson. I'm the president and CEO of Visit Overland Park. Sports tourism is an important part of our tourism strategy here in Overland Park. Sports tourism is a $52 billion annual industry. I have some slides that I'd like to share. Can we put those up on the? There we go. Thank you so much. As I said, $52 billion annual economic spend in the United States. And today, Kansas is in an uncompetitive situation with the surrounding states. In fact, 23 states in the United States have sports tourism grant funding in place, with another state, California, coming online. Can you advance the slide, please? Thank you so much. What makes sports tourism so important is what we're trying to do is drive overnight visitation from out of the state of Kansas into the state of Kansas to compete on the facilities that we already have in Kansas. We're rich with facilities. But the fact is that we're living in a arms race with other states and communities building like-size facilities and funding competitive challenges to attracting business. An overnight sports tourism visitor spends $360 per person per trip. A day visitor only spends $81. So we're obviously focused on overnight visitation with a much larger economic impact for our community. And when we do this right and we do it properly, we actually lower the tax burden on the residents because they drive tax revenue, and we're bringing monies into our state that would otherwise not come. An overnight spend is about 21% of the overall, hotel lodging is about 21% of the overall spend. So it's not just about them staying in a hotel, competing and leaving. They're churning monies through our economies, eating in our restaurants, shopping in our stores, attending events, visiting our cultural institutions, and bringing life and vitality to our communities to make them more attractive. You can advance the slide. We are surrounded in Kansas by states that have sports tourism funding. Wisconsin just added a $5 million fund to attract sports tourism. And when California passes their legislation, they're going to be a juggernaut that we will have to compete against. Texas has unlimited funds. What we're trying to do here with 2346 is to provide a level playing field for all of the communities of Kansas. And I think we've done it in a very thoughtful manner with a lot of rigor, with pre-event measurement, and making sure that there are a lot of guideposts through the system. You can advance that slide. Thank you so much. As I said, $52 billion in direct business spend and taxes of $20 billion across the United States, and about 750,000 jobs supported. This has become big business. There are communities all across the United States investing in this space, and we just want a level playing field for Kansas. You can advance, thank you. Give you just an idea. Of the 205 million visitors that participate in sports tourism, 110 million of them, or 54%, are overnight visitors. And that's really what we're focused on, though we'll gladly appreciate having our day visitors come to Kansas as well. The other thing that I would like you to see out of this slide is we obviously saw a drop when the pandemic happened, but of any tourism sector that performed well post-pandemic, sports tourism was the strategy that led the day. It is what helped communities get back on their feet. Families wanted to continue to have their children compete. And what we're talking about here with sports tourism is really about youth sports and collegiate sports. We hosted in Overland Park the U.S. Youth Midwest Soccer Championships for the last couple of years, and it was a very, very significant event, bringing 205 teams from across the United States, spending almost $3 million over the course of about 5 days. These are economically impactful events that if we can't compete with other states and other communities, we'll see leave. And then I think lastly, just the sheer volume of travel has rebounded, and we see it continuing to grow from a low during the pandemic years to over 52 billion. And I can tell you right now, these numbers are through 23, 25 is even higher, much higher. I'm happy to answer questions when it's appropriate.
We can go ahead and take some questions. So one of the purposes of having this hearing not only is to stress how big of a deal sports tourism is, but it's also to address the bill and suggest any possible changes, other than the fact that all these other states are investing a lot more money. Are there any other changes that you would suggest for this bill? I mean, we can't really, we're trying to cut the budget, not add to the budget, and so we can't really adjust the amount currently. But as you heard earlier, it is subject to appropriations, and if this goes well, we could change it over time. And I know Missouri just went from $3 to $6 million, and that's, that kind of puts us behind the 8 ball. But what other changes would there be that you would suggest?
Well, I think the fact that the way the bill is written today, it's a match. So we, obviously we made the change that there's matching funds, but the fact is that there is so much rigor that we have put into the bill. So we would like to see that there be a sponsor to every event. So we suggest having a destination marketing organization be the sponsor. If there's not a DMO in the community, then their sports commission. If there is not a DMO or sports commission, then a city agency that focuses on sport or tourism would be appropriate, but in that cascading effect. And I think the other thing is we're doing a pre-measurement of these events and having all of these events be under RFP so that we're making sure that we're talking about competitively let events that we're trying to attract to the state of Kansas.
Well, I mean, given the requirements of the bill, I would think that would be in order to have somebody a professional that knows what they're doing handle this, because you've got a lot of paperwork going into the tournament and you've got a lot of proving to do after the fact. Representative Owsley, did you have a question? Or Osman? No. Okay, not seeing anything else. Any other changes?
If this bill would go forward and completed the way we're talking about, this will actually generate funds for the state. And it's all monies that are let post-event. So if the event doesn't have an economic impact, there's no money let. If it does, so the state will be out any money. If the program is run the way we are talking about, it would be a revenue generation for the state.
All right, thank you very much. Next
very
up, Scott Schneider, Restaurant and Hospitality Association.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Scott Schneider, Restaurant and Hospitality Association. I'm not going to stand up here and be the expert on this, but I am going to say that generally we need more. We need more opportunities for our hoteliers to fill their hotels, and we need more opportunities in Kansas for people to participate together. I think this bill is innovative in the sense that it creates some certainty in the spend, because it's spent after the fact and it's a knowable amount of money. And to that extent, I think it's novel and something that we should pursue. I did want to give just a quick overview of where the big industry is in Kansas with regard to the occupancy rates. We went from about 45%, and we've kind of survived this post-COVID moment. Generally, we're up to 76%, which is a good increase. The daily rate went from 85 to about 120 right now that they're kind of measuring. So we've got a positive movement in this space, but I think this bill would add to that, and I just encourage you to support this if possible. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Schneider? All right, seeing none. Who is it? There's somebody online that is waiting for a WebEx invite. Roxanne Morgan.
From Garden City. She hasn't gotten the WebEx invite.
She hasn't?
No.
Okay. Well, we're trying to figure that out still, I guess, but we sent it twice. Okay, next speaker is Dusty Buell with the Wichita Open. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Chairman, members of the committee. My name's Dusty Buell. I am the tournament director of the Wichita Open in Wichita, Kansas. And I wanted to come as a strong proponent of this bill as more of a unique voice of a tournament that we have that retention is going to be key. I'm also in a unique position that this tournament was hanging by a thread after our 2025 tournament. Not only did we have a tornado rip through us that caused us undue burden, but we also had the PGA come back to us as they are reshaping their entire ecosystem of the PGA, eliminating tournaments, adding other tournaments, and we're up against bidding these tournaments with others that have a state proponent to them, such as Virginia, who just got the championship of the Corn Ferry, who their title sponsor is the state of Virginia. So we feel that we are acting as a disadvantage. We have 225 sponsors, and that's the only way that this tournament goes on. It's a community event and something that we look forward to every year. We are the only professional golf tournament in the state of Kansas. I know that I do have my testimony in front of you, but I'd like to share just a few other important points that I see is that this isn't just a tournament in June, but it's a year-round opportunity that we have. Air Capital Charities is our organization. We're a 501c3 out of Wichita. Through that, we do additional tournaments and events throughout the year where we have given over $1 million back to nonprofits and charities in the Wichita community, and that number continues to climb. But without this tournament, without these opportunities that we have, it takes a big chunk of what we can do to benefit these charities in Wichita. We have a terrific partner in Wichita, in Visit Wichita, who has been a sponsor as long as I can remember. And so support from the local level, but the one thing that we have never received is support from the state level. And I feel that when you look at our tournament and you look at our metrics and you see that $8 million of economic impact just for the city of Wichita, it's important that we do what we can to sustain, maintain, and retain the Wichita Open as a golf tournament there. The Wichita Open hosts a children's cancer golf clinic before the Wichita Open's played, so children that are facing a diagnosis of cancer can come meet with the PGA pros and have a day to themselves. The next day we have adopted the first of its kind in the nation, an adaptive children's clinic where this is typically held at Topgolf for reasons that these kids can't be on a golf tournament. Usually it's a mobility issue. We have pros that come to Topgolf, work with these families and allow these kids to have a day like they've never had, and it ends up being something that these families can go do that they've never thought of that they could do with their children. After last year's tournament, we had to make a very difficult decision to leave PGA's Corn Ferry Tour and move to PGA Tour Americas, which is one step below the Corn Ferry, for all of these reasons that I mentioned. Expenses, cost, the cost of doing business, and the cost that the PGA is telling us we need to give this tournament got out of control with what we were able to do without overburdening our sponsors that already give us enough. So we have moved to PGA Tour Americas. We are now on a global stage as one of only 2 PGA Tour America events in the United States of America. And so there's going to be a lot of eyes on us. We are kind of the big fish in a small pond now. And so we need to give it everything that we have. And finally, as I said, as the PGA ecosystem has shifted, there was 4 tournaments last year that left the PGA system altogether. We could have been number 5 But it's because of our community support. It is because of our sponsorships. Like I said, 225 sponsors. In the next tournament on the Corn Ferry, the closest to us is 105 sponsors. So our community is unlike any other. But if you just look at it, the tournament in Springfield, Missouri is no longer happening as of last year. A tournament in Arlington, Texas is no longer happening. The championship that was held in French Lick, Indiana got swiped from them, and they have nothing to recover that tournament for and moved to Richmond. These are very real consequences, and I just want to make sure to this body to let you know that it's not a Kansas City issue, an Overland Park issue, a Wichita issue. This is a state issue. This is an outside the state issue, as we have 156 golfers, 156 caddies, 225 sponsors that bring people into Wichita to use those hotels. And truly, I do understand there's a mechanism for the transient tax, but in my opinion and what I've seen, it is insufficient for what we need at this time for who we are and who we want to be as we grow. So I thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there is any.
Okay, sir, are there any questions? So I've been to your tournament and had a great time there, and it did bring in a lot of people, and it's not just for the area around the golf course either. They were all over the city. I don't believe that this bill is worded properly to allow for a golf tournament, and that's one of the things I want to talk to the committee about. Because we do have a golf tournament, a USGA Senior Open coming to Hutch in 2029, I believe, that would also not qualify for this, and they're trying to search out funding in order to make that happen. And so outside of making just a straight appropriation, it would be good to be able to document the economic activity before we actually, bucked up. So, sir, can you tell me, how would you go about proving hotel room nights? Because I know that the hotels are packed, but they could be there for you, they could not be there for you. And these tournament sports, they kind of book the hotels for the teams, and they're more easily proved. So how would you go about doing that?
We would work with Visit Wichita to create a mechanism to prove our room nights. We, similar to your sports teams, we are the ones that are working with our local hotels to get room nights for players, caddies, PGA the staff from the PGA that are coming in, and you're talking 156 plus 156 staying 7 nights at a minimum, and then all of the PGA staff. So we can get a good handle on a majority of those rooms, but we would have to work with Visit Wichita to get the rest of the bulk of the rooms there.
Okay. Any further questions? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Susie Santo, Visit Wichita. Susie, is that correct?
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Susie Santo, President and CEO of Visit Wichita. We are the destination marketing organization in Wichita, and it's my pleasure to be here today to speak with you in support of HB 2346. Sports are big business. If you are a parent and you have a child that's played on a traveling team, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. I see some head nodding. Weekend after weekend, traveling to cities, and you know what that means, the hotel room, the meals, the team meals, the breakfast, in between games, the entertainment, the shopping, the going to the movie, and then you go home and you do it all again the next weekend. And I have watched as colleagues and friends have traveled all over the country with their kids, watching them compete. And whether it's youth sports or professional or amateur or collegiate, when towns host these events, they win big time because sports are a massive economic driver. An example in Wichita is we've hosted recently the United States Youth Soccer President's Cup out at Stryker Field. The President's Cup for these athletes, this is their Super Bowl. This is their championship. And these athletes don't travel alone. They come with their moms and their dads and their siblings and their grandparents. And this is their summer vacation. And they come and they stay and they shop and they dine and they experience all the things that Wichita has to offer. And that 1 week brought in over 6,000 hotel room nights and over $4 million in direct spending. Last year, we had two pretty significant events that we hosted at Interest Bank Arena. The U.S. Figure Skating Championships, hopefully some of you were able to watch that. Just incredible athletes that came in for this event. And by the way, we are wishing them good luck because the athletes that competed in Wichita are now in Milan, getting ready for the opening ceremonies at the Olympics. 2 months later, we hosted the NCAA Men's March Madness rounds 1 and 2. And again, while both of these events are incredible entertainment opportunities for our residents, they were actually, the biggest benefit in my mind is a huge economic driver for the community because these athletes, these coaches, these fans would not have come to Kansas if it weren't for that sporting event. So we've proven we can attract. Imagine what we could do with a state grant program because when Wichita wins, Kansas wins. We generate tax revenue that supports services across the state. And that is why this bill matters. The landscape changed. It is extremely competitive. Rights holders expect local support. They expect us to come with dollars to the table to help ease their burden. And without state grant programs, Kansas communities can only bring the local dollars to the table while we are competing against cities across the country that have both the local and the state support. And this puts Kansas at a competitive disadvantage before the bid process has even started. HB 2346 has the ability to change the game and fix the problem in a responsible and accountable way. This is not a blank check. This is paid post-event and is performance-based. It's designed to generate an ROI, and it's transparent and temporary with a sunset. And when one community wins, Kansas wins. When Overland Park wins the right to host an event, Kansas wins. When Salina or Dodge City or Hutch or Wichita wins the right to host an event, Kansas wins because those are visitors that would not have come to Kansas otherwise. And those tax revenues, the tax revenue they generate benefit all of us. HB 2346 gives communities a tool they are currently missing. And one that nearly, as Warren stated, half of the country already uses and does so with fiscal discipline and accountability. For Wichita, this program would help us to continue to compete for national significant sports events that showcase Kansas on a national stage. And for the state, it represents a smart, data-driven investment in economic growth. We thank you for your consideration. I would like to add that I'm in complete agreement with Warren's comments when asked by the chairman about what else could enhance the bill. And I would like to add one other thing for consideration. I think exhibit games would be a wonderful addition to this because we have seen in Wichita an exhibition game when we at Interest Bank Arena hosted the Thunder. They travel, they come, they spend the night, and they bring visitors to our community that otherwise would not have come. I want to thank you for your time. My colleague Josh Howell is right back there, and he is our Vice President of Sports Development. He's here as well, and both of us are happy to stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. Committee, any questions? Okay, seeing none on that. So we still have one more online proponent, but we can't reach her. So we're going to move her to written only for now. We're going to move to oral testimony, and that's Sean Dixon with TIAC.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Tarwater and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Sean Dixon. I'm the president of Visit Topeka here in the capital city, but I'm here before you as the chair-elect of the Travel Industry Association of Kansas and our members. We represent more than 175 CVBs, convention visitors bureaus, destination organizations, hotels, lodging providers, and attractions, and tourism partners across this state. We support sports tourism and any program that brings new visitors and new dollars to Kansas. TIAC is neutral on HB 2346 as it currently stands, but we believe this bill can be a very strong tool for the state. But we want to express our considerations for our members at this time. First, our membership has expressed that they prefer this to be a new business acquisition or a preference to new business acquisition versus existing events. I'm not saying exclusively, but many other states who have done this work have tried to strike a balance between the two. And that varies from state to state, but certainly a consideration we would like to see if the state is involved in what we do, that it's bringing new business to the state and growing the pie for us. Second, the program must provide a little bit more flexible support for rural Kansans. And many of our rural members have submitted some testimony, and some will be speaking here today. On the other side of this, but we support the $250,000 carve-out that is sort of encumbered from Johnson, Sedgwick, and Wyandotte counties. But from hearing from our members, to make this a bit more effective, we would like and recommend a review of the requirement that events be nationally bid for our rural members in particular. I appreciate the discussion previously on golf and things with Hutch. I think those are right along the lines of what we're talking about in that area there. But we still want them competing for high impact regional and multi-state events that still generate the visitor spend. Third, and this I believe is in the bill, but we want to make sure we doubled on that, but economic accountability is very important to us in this. TIAC supports using the destination's international event impact calculator to ensure grant awards are based on objective data, particularly lodging, room nights, and state sales tax generation. That transparency protects taxpayers and strengthens the program. And then finally, on behalf of our members, I want to reiterate our biggest concern out of TIAC is making sure that the existing Kansas tourism funding remains unchanged and is not affected by this work. We do not believe any legislation should move forward if it threatens the tourism budget within the Department of Commerce. And thank you for the opportunity to testify and stand for any questions.
All right, committee, any questions? Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question on your priority number one.
Yes.
Why would you say should aggressively pursue new rather than existing long-term sporting events?
Absolutely. I mean, we all live within our transient guest taxes as individual destinations doing this work year-round. There's been a lot of talk of national events hosted in Wichita and Overland Park. I have 2 national events coming up that I am sponsoring all of those completely out of my city's transient guest funds with. So our position in this, if the state is going to double down and enter into this and help us with that it should grow beyond what we can do for ourselves, and it should attract new business to the state versus subsidizing existing business that we're already paying for.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But if we subsidized an event to be here, to get them here,
Right.
they would potentially need some subsidization to continue. And wouldn't it be more effective to keep an existing sporting event that we have rather than always try for something out there, something just out of reach?
Absolutely agree, Representative, and that's why we're not saying exclusively on either side of this. There should be a balance in this where there is at least a discussion of attracting new business to the state, but also recognizing when we do have those events that are vital to what we have now, that they are not leaving, but know that we as rural, that our individual cities are also contributing to this as well, and that should be factored into this conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, so I agree with your representative. If we lost, there are 2 or 3 massive tournaments that we have that if we were to lose, it would take a lot of making up for bringing new events in. And this bill, as you can see, when I asked the reviser, it is written for both. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think it's more the implementation and the administration of the bill.
Representative Bohai.
I think that answers my thought. So thank you for speaking to that, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Are there any other neutral? There are several, there's one written-only opponent, 3 or 4 written-only neutral, and a few written-only proponents that you should probably review. And committee, the intent, if we work this bill, is to make the changes, some of them that were talked about today. There's a couple other minor tweaks with like the dates and all that, but I would like to try to find a way to include exhibition games and golf tournaments because they do bring in, adequate tourism. And if we're going to do this, I want to make sure we do it right. And so that was my intent. If there are other amendments that you're going to have, let's try to work with the reviser because they are inundated currently. And we do plan on working this bill sometime next week if we have time. But work with the reviser and allow him to work with anyone else that has the same type of an amendment that you have so that we're not chewing up a bunch of time. And with that, I'll close the hearing on HB 2346. And we're going to have a conversation with Midwest Transformers. Representative King, would you like to introduce your guest?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. President and CEO Mitch Swigert is here with us today with Midwest Electric Transformers, a Heston, Kansas-based company. And Mitch is a graduate of Heston High School and has come back and providing over 50 jobs to the local community. And so I'll let him talk a little bit about his experience. And this isn't a statewide company. This is a regional and actually a national company. So, Mitch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative King. Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about our small town business and kind of our path and how it's intersected with the state and where we've been and where we're going. Let's see here. There we go. This is kind of a representative of the type of equipment we build. We're in the transformer business. The business itself was founded in 1981. In 2019, a partner and myself purchased the assets of the business. It was going out of business, and we decided to forge a new path. We remanufacture electrical equipment. It's one of the beauties of the industry, the business that we're in is it's really about recycling and reuse. So especially as commodities are increasingly precious, we're able to make the best use of this equipment and prolong its life. Kind of liken it to a game of old maid, where we'll find equipment from one utility or one part of the country that is no longer needed, upsizing or changing voltages, and we'll find another utility that needs it, and we'll rebuild it and make it like new. And for us, culture is really king. We can't find talent that has this any understanding of our industry locally, so we pour into our people and develop and retain that talent as much as we can. As far as kind of how we win, what sets us apart, speed, reliability, and the ease of doing business. Particularly over the last 5 years, our industry, manufacturing as a whole, and certainly the transformer business is no different, has been kind of inundated with foreign competition. And so one of the ways that we've really leaned into our business is making it easy to do business and making it easy for our customers to get answers. And it's something that our global competitors can't do as well. And so really see that as a key part of our future, of knowing that when they call, there will be a real person on the other end of the phone that's going to give them the answers and suggestions that they need. This gives you this kind of a representative overview of the types of products that we build. Voltage regulators to keep the voltage consistent, particularly for rural electric cooperatives or rural areas across the country. Pole mount transformers. Right now we have trucks on the road to Oxford, Mississippi and Northeast Louisiana to deliver transformers in the wake of the ice storm that went through last week. We really excel in those the storm response situations. Three-phase pad mounts that you see at most of your industrial sites, reclosers that are kind of sectionalizing these utility networks, and then single-phase pad mounts that common behind any house or any development. As far as our workforce, it's really the backbone of our business. As Mike mentioned, we're at 50 employees, a range of distinctions, and managing our own sales, and then manufacturing. Something that we take a lot of pride in is providing very good jobs to our people. As you can see, for the HPIP requirement for our area, in order to qualify, it's for this year is just over 60,000, and our average our median wage for our workforce is closer to 77,000. So no problem for us qualifying for that credit, and it means we're providing a lot of good jobs for our people. Our industry, kind of talking about not being a local or even a regional player, 85% of our sales are to outside of Kansas customers. And so we will ship nationwide and across 4 primary customer types: municipal electric departments, investor-owned utilities, rural electric cooperatives, and then industrial and commercial customers as well. Over the last 10 to 15 years, like we see in almost every industry, there's been significant consolidation. Private equity is rolling up as many of the small regional rebuilders like ourselves, and creating bigger and bigger companies that will flip to the next private equity and flip, and then eventually the goal of going public. As in our view, you know, there are threats to that, but as competition gets larger and more cumbersome, the slide about speed and flexibility, that plays into our favor, because we're able to move faster and respond. And even though we are a small player, we serve the largest businesses across the country, and this is kind of representative across all distinctions, whether it's the government or whether it's large utilities or big industrial accounts. This next slide, this gives an aerial view of both what we bought in 2019 and what we have now. We were and kind of go through our growth story. So what was 5 employees and $600,000 a year in revenues with, you know, no benefits. We are now at 50 employees. Last year we did $40 million. We expect to do slightly less this year, just as the demand cools in some of the industry. But a full suite of benefits for our employees and good paying jobs. And we've gone from a 6,000 square foot facility on 3 acres to about 65,000 square foot outside of Heston on 30 acres. So it's really been a pretty wild ride. A lot of that, bought the business in 2019, and then 4 months later, the world shut down and COVID struck, and it was kind of a what now moment, but it turned out to be quite a boon for our business, going back to being when we only had 5 employees and we didn't have as much of the challenge navigating masking mandates or whatever. We could just keep going to work, and the disruptions in the supply chain affected everyone else, and we were able to kind of keep plowing ahead, and the calls started coming in. So it was a significant period of growth, and that supply chain disruption lasted for really the following 3 years, through the end of 23 into 24, where the large manufacturers really struggled to get their feet on the ground and recover from some of that. As far as kind of our business growth, capital investments, and talk about some of the incentives that we've been able to capitalize on, I think from the state, the most effective incentive for us has been HPIP. And really starting when we moved from our current facility into Heston and made that big capital investment is the first time that program really made sense for us. Peak is another program that we've certainly we're aware of and we've considered. I think the administrative burden of that program hasn't made sense up to this point, and we didn't qualify for it until we had full health care for all of our employees. It's something that we'll evaluate for this year moving forward. I think Heston in particular, the Harvey County Economic Development's been very supportive, but the city of Heston also sees the vision. We've had, some headwinds with some of the manufacturing we've had there in town, and so I think looking forward, they've been very supportive of both bringing us and retaining our business and continuing to invest alongside of us with tax abatements, and so very grateful for that. We've built every year. We're in the process right now of another expansion to move into larger equipment as we see the market kind of shift in some ways. For the business growth, I think as we look at our opportunities, the renewables and data centers, very high consumption, utilize a lot of electricity and soak up a lot of the manufacturing capacity, which is good for our industry. The aging electrical infrastructure, most of the state of Kansas was electrified in the 40s and 50s, and there's still transformers that have never been changed out from then. So as the equipment ages, it's more opportunity for us to replace and renew. Very thankful for the local talent pool that we have, and continuing to develop people from a rural area that still have a good work ethic has been a good opportunity for us. And as I said, as we invest in new capital, new product lines, we recently purchased another company out of Minneapolis, Kansas, and brought them into our business for the voltage regulators. We'll look for more opportunities like that. Our threats that our kind of global threats that we see, the foreign manufacturers, we've seen a ton of investment from Korea and China, other mostly predominantly Asian countries to capture as much of this market share as they can. We kind of view the domestic distribution transformer market to be about $6 billion, and they see the demand as the data centers and the renewables. So, for us, it's a little bit of an unequal playing field because we can't compete on the wage, but we try to compete in the other areas. Then another kind of unknown into the future is DOE regulations, particularly for the rebuild industry as they move towards this amorphous core steel. There's a picture of that on the slide. It's like tin foil, which is really impossible to rebuild. So it's nothing that will stop the industry over the next 5 or 10 years, but as more and more of that equipment, if the new DOE regulations would go into effect, it will really make all of this equipment just disposable and not rebuildable. So it's something that we just have to be aware of, and also where we have to kind of diversify our product mix. With that, Mr. Chairman, thank you again for letting me talk a little bit about our business. I'm happy to work in a town and a state that big ideas and hard work still pay off.
That's a great story. Thanks for being here. And that's a tremendous amount of growth, and congratulations on what you've done down there. That's South Central Kansas. That's great. Representative Laura Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, it's cool to be able to hear different things that are going on within the state. So thank you, Representative King, also too, for however you got them here. It's fun to hear. You touched on this just a little bit, but when it comes to your workforce issues, you obviously recruit local. Do you, come into barriers when it comes to hiring in the workforce, or what do you utilize to be able to kind of create that pipeline?
It's a great question. So I would say it's probably abnormal, and we're very gracious that we really haven't run into many barriers for hiring. We haven't posted a job in several years. It's all word of mouth. As soon as we're ready to create a new opening, we will let our employees know, and they'll kind of usually have someone in mind. It's nice because it's a pre-vetted person at that point, that no one's going to stake their reputation on someone that's not going to show up to work every day. And that's part of our goal, is to treat our employees very well and pay them accordingly, and then they're going to be more likely to want to find other people that they want to work with. So I will say with AGCO and Excel, both there in Heston, and they've experienced some rounds of layoffs. There in our area, there is access to some manufacturing talent that maybe other areas don't have quite as much.
So real quick, how long does it take you to train somebody up, somebody that you've vetted and brought in? They most likely aren't going to have the experience required. How long does it take to get them going?
Yeah, so a great question. We have a process of our kind of most new manufacturing assembly employees start in an area that requires the least amount of training and is more kind of a physical labor. And then depending on their aptitude and abilities, they'll keep progressing through distinctions until they get something more technical, advanced, like winding a transformer or stacking or some of those other areas. But we have, whether it could be paint prep or painting or tearing down a transformer, that learning curve might be weeks rather than months. But our longest tenured employee, one of the legacy employees we have there, he's been there 46 years, and he still winds transformers, but he could do it with his eyes closed.
I would suggest that that's an important safety tip, committee. Let's keep our eyes open for winding transformers. Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perfect timing. I just had a rural electric group come to me and say that the prices of replacing their transformers has skyrocketed by over 100%. So can you give me an idea of how much it would cost for them to get a remanufactured one as opposed to buying a new one? Because I know the new one is over.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Large number.
Yeah, so all costs have skyrocketed, and we have control over a portion of that, but not all of it. You know, copper just last week hit all-time. It seems like every week it's hitting an all-time high. It was up at $6.30 a pound. One of our challenges is we still wind everything with copper, and we tend to build things probably a little bit more like they used to be built, and our goal is once it leaves, we never want to see it again, and we see failures from new transformers at a higher rate. We'll see 5, 10, 15-year transformers failing, and we'll see 50, 60, 70-year-old transformers that are still good. And I think that's part of the challenge for us to compete on price alone is maybe our price for a rebuild product isn't that much less than a new Chinese transformer, for instance, and so we have to compete in other ways. But commodities have definitely impacted a lot of it, but even beyond kind of the metal commodities portion of it, once any manufacturer, once any distributor has the opportunity to grab price, they're just never going to get it back. And there was a lot of price grabbing going on during the COVID period for all the components of a bushing or a paint or whatever. And even though the demand has come down, the price hasn't. So we have seen that, and I think it'll make a lot of impact on how these utilities make decisions of what they're doing for maybe repairing rather than replacing. I think that would probably, in the 90s and 2000s, how this industry was really started, rebuilding transformers, was after they'd been out there long enough, people were like, these utilities said, we can change the oil, we can paint it, we can make it look like new without having to buy a replacement. And then the prices after 2008, when the housing crash, dropped so much that transformers became a commodity. I mean, refrigerators, TVs, everything used to be replaced or repaired instead of replaced. But as prices really got driven down in a global economy, it became more of a throwaway item. I think long term, we expect utilities to get back into the pattern of repairing rather than replacing, and that's where you start seeing a lot of your price savings.
Okay, if I may, one more. Can you tell me, they said the other problem they're having is getting orders filled. So if you're redoing it, is it a shorter term to get it to the customer, or do you have any idea what that is like?
Absolutely, yeah. What our goal on lead time is really it depends on the product type, but anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks. And what we see, particularly on the larger equipment, on like a 3-phase pad mount, most new manufacturers are more in the 40 to 50 week range. So you have to plan a year ahead of time. So if you want to do a project next summer, you have to buy it this summer. And that's that's where we win. We love it when new manufacturers' lead times are long because they're like, well, I can't wait that long, you know. But in a situation like this ice storm, we get a call Saturday morning, we have a truck on the road Sunday. That's, so 24 hours we can, but we also saw the storm coming. We started building transformers last Tuesday to get ready for it. We kind of know what the voltage is in that area, what those utilities might need. So that's kind of the joy of being small, is we can react. And if someone needs it, we can do it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Wilcott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Earlier, you touched a little bit on data centers as opportunities. Are data centers typically buying new, thus driving that market to supply and demand coming to you? Or are they also looking for rebuild equipment that you offer?
Another great question. So data centers in themselves aren't a great fit for us to provide, because they'll buy 40 of the same thing, and that's just not really our world. But we're glad for that to soak up the capacity at the new manufacturers and push out the lead times, and then we'll focus on the 1 and 2 transformer orders somewhere else that the new manufacturers might not care about. So overall, you know, any demand that can soak up capacity is great for us. Long term, we see it as kind of some opportunity to do the maintenance and repair those transformers as they fail, and that's what we're seeing a lot of in the renewable industry. It's been around long enough, it's grown enough that we see a lot more transformers that are failing at the base of the turbine or in these solar farms that need to be rebuilt, and that represents a lot of opportunity. But for us to go in and completely, outfit a data farm or a wind farm, we're just, that's the GEs and the Siemens and the really large players that are packaging it with the rest of the equipment. But it's still, we get the secondary benefit.
All right, so last week we had our utilities in here, and they were talking about the data centers and the advanced manufacturing and the overwhelming demand for power, and that they're trying to keep up, and the kind of like almost an economic development tool utilities are becoming. But you said that your demand is kind of cooling, and that doesn't really math. You would think that with that kind of demand and they're building out the power, that there would be more of a demand for your business.
Yeah, great point. So where our demand lived in from kind of 2020 until close to into 24 was in a lot of single-phase transformers, because development across the country was going crazy. So we would be sending truckloads of single-phase pad mounts to Maricopa County or outside of Washington, D.C. or Austin, Texas, and it was just going gangbusters. And that has significantly slowed as part of where we're investing in the larger equipment and the 60,000 pound crane capacity and handling equipment, because we see the demand to continue to be strong kind of at that next level above where we've been living. So we're retooling to kind of respond to the wave of the future, because those data centers typically just take a bigger style of transformer, and it's also where what used to be in that type of equipment, maybe 5% or less was foreign. I would say it's probably 30 or more percent is foreign transformers now that they see that demand, and that size and type of equipment travels pretty well in a container.
Okay, then, so with all the new being developed, would that I would assume, you know what that means, but I would assume that some people are replacing their older units with newer units because they might see it as an advantage. Does that create like a core market for you to purchase the used ones and recycle them yourself and have an inventory, or?
That's exactly it. Yes. So we'll purchase all the old equipment, and depending on the age, there is an age that, for one, PCBs were a big concern historically in the transformers until 1980. But if it's too old, the steel might be kind of unusable, so it's just scrap because it will be too inefficient. But after into the 80s and through the 90s, they started using a high-grade silicone steel. So all of that can be reused, and that's kind of the game of old maid that we play, is we're just trying to make the best use of this piece of equipment. If it's still electrically good and we can test it and paint it and give it a tune-up, then we don't want to sell anything that we don't feel like will go out there and last another 40 years. But of course, we have a different opinion maybe than some. We feel like it's just as likely for a transformer that was built in the 80s to last 40 more years as something that was built in 2015. But we're going to put our name on it, and it's going to look and act like new. But anytime, particularly where we see large utilities, someone like Evergy or Entergy out of New Orleans, they're going to be more likely to get rid of their equipment that a rural electric cooperative is not going to get rid of. And so we can take this good equipment from this place and sell it at a discount over here.
Committee, any further questions? All right, seeing none. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. And committee, what do we got, 1 or 2 tomorrow? 2 bills tomorrow. We're adjourned.